to the Swayam MOOC course, NGOs and Sustainable Development, Unit 3, Module 17, Issues and Challenges of Sustainable Development. Learning Objectives. By the end of this module, you will be able to learn about the issues and challenges of sustainable development. Understand how to overcome these challenges. Now let us see the introduction. Several challenges threaten the progress towards achieving Sustainable Development Goals, which is the SDGs. The food crisis, the energy crisis, the financial crisis, economic recession, climate change, to name a few. And all of these stand tall in the way of achieving sustainable development. However, all of the above are interconnected, and an integrated, holistic solution have to be found to overcome these challenges. Sustainable development is a bridge between environmental, economic, and social goals, between government, society, business, between science and policy, between policy and action. So, to achieve sustainable development, let us see the issues and challenges in detail. Some of the issues include streamlining the agriculture produce. Farmers are facing a lot of issues. Inadequacy of appropriate transport system for distributing their products to the consumers and getting potential returns for the amount of money they have invested, the amount of labor they have invested has to be carried out. Lack of proper pricing policies, procedures for the farmers' products, and insurance to protect them from any natural hazards. All these have to be addressed if we need to ensure the food chain is sustainable. Next issue is providing clean energy. We find that fossil fuels are being used to a large extent. Petrol consumption is increasing at a tremendous rate even when the oil prices are increasing, which usually when a price increases, the demand for the product decreases. But it is not so with petrol. The number of vehicles people purchase is on the rise even when the petrol prices are increasing. So, we need to find an alternate clean energy source to cater to the needs of the energy requirement. So, appropriate policies has to be framed, be it in the domestic household sector or in commercial establishments such as hotels, hospitals, and industrial sector. Next comes the issue of income inequality. The employment needs has to be provided so that there is no income inequality among the public. People are found to be moving from rural areas to the urban areas looking out for employment and a higher quality of living. So, this also creates income inequality among the communities. The fourth issue that we are facing towards sustainable development is protecting the endangered species. The overconsumption and the expanding human population pose a very high risk of extinction for some of the species and creatures and the natural resources. Over 40% of the currently existing species on Earth are predicted to become extinct in the near future. Now let us see some of the challenges that we face in achieving sustainable development. The first challenge is population. And population is a major challenge that we face in the process of achieving sustainable development. The world population has peaked at 6 billion people at the start of the 21st century and is projected to stabilize between 10 to 11 billion people over the next 50 years. As more young people enter the workforce, there will be a need to enhance the amount of productive employment possibilities for them. The second is fresh water. It is essential for all life on the earth and one of the most important natural resources for sustenance. As per the Maslow's need hierarchy theory, we know that it is the first level of need for mankind and animal and for, as well as plants to survive. So access to fresh water is one of the most important issues in the human rights since it is crucial for human dignity. A significant obstacle to sustainable development is the scarcity of providing clean drinking water in many parts of the world. By 2025, if the development continues at the current pace, every second person will experience a water deficit. Despite the fact that there is still a severe water shortage, inefficient water consumption is a catastrophe that needs to be avoided. Else, there will be unbalanced water management practices. We find water getting wasted in many parts of the world with significant organic and bacterial contaminants being left untreated. Access to clean drinking water has become a very important issue. The third challenge we face towards achieving sustainable development is groundwater depletion. Untreated sewage and municipal refuse are often dumped into the waterways in many of the cities. Due to the inadequate sewage treatment infrastructure, metropolitan areas are particularly vulnerable to this contamination. There is severe water deficit across the country as a result of the declining groundwater levels, particularly during the summer. However, to tackle this problem to some extent, in recent times, government has started rainwater harvesting and it has made it mandatory in the new construction of buildings. So, to some extent, the water that comes from the atmosphere is sent underground so that the ground level, the water in the ground increases. The fourth challenge that we face is hunger. A number of individuals who are malnourished remains a significant barrier to sustainable development. Consumption may have increased as a result of the decline in the food prices over the past 30 years, but yet, in some parts of the world, food is still not available. It may be due to several reasons, maybe because there's lack of money, lack of employment opportunities, or the agricultural land has no water and they face drought conditions. The fourth challenge facing or the obstacle we face is poor health care. Sustainable development is hampered by concerns regarding human health. The health industry is, of course, developing mostly in urban areas, and access to it is also heavily influenced by an individual's manpower or money power. In many instances, death in the underdeveloped nations can be prevented. In the upcoming years, humanity should devote more time and resources to fight against diseases. The most recent UNDP report also stated India's inability to offer its access of health facilities to the entire population. The availability of good healthcare facilities is intimately tied to the social progress and economic development. The community health centers, which are in charge of overseeing the rural medical facilities, either lack employees, labor, personnel who, and sometimes people are unwilling to go to remote areas, villages, to work for the healthcare of the villagers. They frequently lack the infrastructure and medical tools required to provide good health in the remote location. The sixth challenge is deforestation. The rate of depletion of the world's and India's forest resources is on the increase and it is getting to be alarming. The culprits behind this threat include people, we, the business houses, and the government, and many more. The objectives of sustainable development are left behind as trees are cut down in the name of construction projects to cater to the needs of the growing population. The loss of biodiversity is the most important issue which is caused by deforestation. Forest devastation results in the demise of numerous plant species with significant medical value in addition to endangered animal species. It has a significant impact on the global warming as well. The water cycle is also impacted by deforestation. It decreases the amount of water in the ground and also the soil. One of the main contributors to climate change is the degradation of the rainforests. Both atmospheric moisture and carbon dioxide stay in the atmosphere as a result of deforestation. Deforestation also weakens the soil's ability to hold together, causing erosion, flooding, and landslides. Every day, thousands of trees are cut down to make paper, extract lumber, clear land for industries, to provide for tourist destinations, to provide for housing colonies. Actions that do very little to advance the environmental concerns. The seventh challenge that we face is increasing pollution levels. The declining air quality is widely acknowledged as a significant contributor to pollution, particularly in urban areas. Industrial, indoor, and vehicular pollution are some of the causes for air pollution. Numerous industries that emit smoke and other chemical pollutants into the air are to be blamed for the pollution in metropolitan areas. This is further compounded by the annual rise in the number of vehicles that is being procured by the common man. The tremendous increase in the number of vehicles is causing severe traffic bottlenecks, and traffic bottlenecks leads to emissions such as NOx, sulfur oxides, carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, volatile organic compounds which gets into the atmosphere. This causes asthma, respiratory issues, hearing loss, and sometimes major health risk, and we need to take care of these pollutants. In many of the developing countries where people still use wood, dung, cakes, crop residues for cooking, it also results in indoor air pollution if the cooking is done in the house. It is believed that girls, in particular, are at more risk because they are the person who do the cooking in the house. The eighth challenge that we face is climate change. Another challenge preventing us from achieving sustainable development is climate change. It is expected that the world average temperature may rise by 2 to 3 degrees by 2050, and it may rise to the temperature may rise from 3.7 to 5.6 degrees by 2100. So, in many parts of the world, the changes in climate, particularly the rise in temperature, have already has an impact on a wide range of physical and biological systems. There is shrinking of glaciers, the freezing of water, breaking up of ice on the rivers. The Arctic, people say the ice in the Arctic has melted to a large extent, resulting in a small increase in the sea level. So even such small increases in the sea level causes flooding of the land. The lakes are at odd period of time gets fermented, and extinction of plant and animal repeat and extension of plant and animal species because of the odd temperature rises. So there is no predictability in the temperature at the sea, and aquatic life is endangered. Poor health condition among the people, reduced natural resources has caused abrupt changes in the climate, and all these are the consequence of climate change. The social and environmental facets of the society have also changed, suffered because of climate change. The worsening of the human society and the natural system is reflected by the damage and the death caused because of drought, flood, heat waves, and windstorm. So, all these are the results of climate change. Crop failures, food shortages, communicable diseases, environmental degradation, etc., are some of the problems that we face because of the rising temperature and the carbon emission. The next challenge for achieving sustainable development is the air and water pollution, which comes from industries. Industrial development is, of course, required for a nation's prosperity. However, the air and water pollution are caused or that are emitted from the factories is a concern for the common man. The air we breathe is contaminated with a variety of hazardous substances, including chemicals, which can cause fatal conditions including cancer, asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which is the COPD, eye rashes, etc. So, industries discharge these hazardous waste and poisonous materials into the water sources, contaminating the water in rivers, lakes, ponds, streams, resulting in severe epidemics in people, animals, aquatic life. In the name of progress, we are seriously damaging our environment. The 10th challenge that we face in our progress towards achieving the sustainability development is education for all. Of course, education is being provided in pockets, but the challenge for achieving sustainable development is we need to provide education for the entire community, for the entire world. So, education is one of the most fundamental and critical, crucial element of sustainable development. Every member in the society needs to be educated. It is important for providing the social, economic, and political inclusion, as well as for providing a lasting integration of the people, because it is only through education that people who have been excluded can be brought into the society's mainstream. Given the synergies and the favorable externalities that it creates for people well-being, it is the best social investment. So when we give education for the community, we are uplifting the community, giving them better access to all the revenues of the government. So necessary impetus has to be provided for giving education to the entire community. The 11th obstacle, the challenge we face is threat to biodiversity. The Earth's biodiversity is an important resource that must be protected and needs to be used wisely. The survival of biodiversity is severely hampered by widespread habitat degradation, contamination of the soil, water, and atmosphere. It is very rare to see in the cities a natural habitat. We call the city a prison because there are lots of buildings that is coming up with little notice to greenery around it. So it is very essential that we preserve the biodiversity, maintain plants around buildings so that there is an ecosystem balance, the cycle is enhanced. Due to the improper use, the biological resources are in the danger of becoming extinct. Although the issue can be resolved by placing severe restrictions on the excessive use, the path towards sustainable development has been severely delayed because of the desire by mankind. So, every man needs to ensure that they nurture the plants around them, they take care of the trees, and ensure that whatever is cut down, tenfold is planted, because industrial development requires space, and when we require space, invariably trees are cut down. So, when trees are cut down, the trees take thousands of years, hundreds of years to grow. So, when a tree is cut down, it is the responsibility, there should be a desire in mankind to plant new trees so that what has been lost has been gained. The 12th obstruction or the 12th challenge we face is consumption of fossil fuels. Use of fossil fuels like coal and oil present a significant obstacle in achieving sustainable development. Because of fossil fuel utilization, the emission concentration is expected to reach between 650 and 700 parts per million ppm of carbon dioxide equivalent by 2050 and between 800 and 1300 ppm of carbon dioxide equivalent by 2100. according to certain forecasts made by OECD, which is Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development report, which was published in 2012. There is a dire need to switch over from fossil fuels utilization to renewable energy. So the fossil fuel are the coal and oil, and they are the major suppliers of our electricity that we consume. Of course, electricity, when we consume, it is very easy to use electricity. So it is essential that we convert, we change over or switch over from this conventional fuel where electricity uses coal and oil to renewable energy. Today, technology is available to use solar, wind, and get electricity from these renewable sources, and it can be used for our daily household requirements. Sometimes, in some instances, the renewable energy can also be used for generating electricity to meet the needs of the industrial sector also. Over the next 10 to 15 years, the important task will be to provide dependable, sustainable, and environment friendly energy. There are several alternate routes for generating energy that is sustainable. These paths call for ambitious policies, improved international cooperation, implementation methods, and behavioral changes. And it requires a huge amount of funding also, because conversion from the traditional coal and oil to a renewable form of energy requires capital investment, and for that funding is required. Secondly, when we use a biogas, where we generate gas from animal waste, again a behavioral change is required, because we should understand that the gas from the animal waste is again uh, can be profitably used instead of using the LPG, that is the liquefied petroleum gas. And liquefied petroleum gas comes from oil, which is again not an environmentally friendly energy. So switching over from an LPG to a biogas requires a behavioral change, a change in the mindset. All this is required if I want to reach sustainable development. The 13th challenge we face is funding. To assist the adoption of green technologies, capacity building, and access to public transport, housing, water, sanitation, energy, healthcare, education, international cooperation is required, and most important, funding is required. Richer cities need policies to encourage renewable energy, the use of renewable energy, and to reduce the inefficiency and the wasteful consumption of energy. Regulatory measures are important for deciding on the pricing structures, taxes, and subsidies, both for households and for industries. Subsidizing the energy will not be a good way to promote the use of renewable energy. The energy price should be competitive enough and low cost, so that people switch over from the conventional form of energy to a renewable form of energy. The 14th challenge that we face is poverty. Another significant issue is poverty, which affects roughly 25% of people worldwide who earn less than $1 per day. Sustainable development also means inclusive development, meaning every member of the community comes together to the mainstream society, and everybody gets the minimum wages, minimum salary, so that they are able to live a sustainable life. India has the most number of people living below the worldwide poverty line, despite its best efforts to combat poverty. The 15th challenge, which is being faced mostly in India, is monitoring and measuring the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. We have already seen 17 SDGs, and India also has its own indicators and targets. But data collection remains a challenge. How to gauge this SDGs accomplishment is a challenge that India faces. The Indian government has acknowledged that it is hard to accurately gauge the progress because its data collection methodology is still at the nascent stage. Other challenges include government conflict between short term profit and long term investment on sustainable technologies. For example, if the government needs to invest in solar technologies or wind technologies, then a large amount of capital investment is required for converting wind to electricity. So, government needs to take this decision. There is a conflict whether to invest for renewable energy technologies, but in due course, it is slowly becoming a mandatory requirement. The next challenge is corruption. Natural disasters like earthquakes, tsunamis also cause a disruption and becomes a challenge. Proper disaster management strategies have to be in place. Lack of it will make people susceptible to both nature and man induced disasters. It may lead to not only loss of lives but loss of infrastructure, loss of resources, and finally, it is the loss of revenue to the government. In the village of Ramche in Nepal, the only source of water was shaken off course by an earthquake in 2015. As a result, the village is undergoing severe drought water crisis. They are driven to use E. coli contaminated water for cooking and drinking in desperation because they cannot afford bottled water. It is our generation which is compelling the future generations to inherit an unsustainable ecological system. Sustainable development needs to be based on guaranteeing food, water, health, education, employment, etc. to every individual, providing an equitable management of the world's resources, providing equitable distribution of its wealth. So the today's generation has to understand the importance of all this and need to provide a sustainable system for the future generations. We know about the issues and we know about the challenges that we face today. However, we also have the answers on how to meet these challenges so that we achieve sustainability, and we need to work towards achieving the 17 SDGs. A concerted effort is required by every individual, by every community, organization, and government so that we don't waste our natural resources. We encash on our resources so that we provide a sustainable, healthy atmosphere for our future generations. Now, let us see some questions and answers in this module. Why is sustainable development so difficult? We have social barriers, we have political barriers, to name a few. Social barriers include population growth paired with unsustainable consumption and production patterns among the wealthy. They are the biggest social challenges which is preventing us from achieving sustainable development. The political barriers, which is inadequate economic, social, and environmental methods in their policies, plans, and projects, which again is a barrier which prevents us from achieving sustainable development. So, how can organization face the challenges and become sustainable? For an organization to be sustainable and meet its objectives profitably, they should adopt a mid path that ensures adequate balance between profitability and sustainability. Thus, companies must be innovative and agile to changes so that they do not use too much of the resources and they are still able to maintain their profitability. Question 3. What are the problems of sustainable development in India? Some of the problems could be the degrading air quality index, rampant environmental degradation, loss of biodiversity, urbanization even in the Himalayas, loss of resilience in the ecosystem, lack of waste management procedures, depletion of our natural resources, and growing water scarcity to the extent today we need to buy water. Future countries may fight because of water. So, to summarize, in this module, we have learned about the issues and challenges we face for achieving sustainable development. We have understood what are those challenges, and hence we have understood how to overcome these challenges so that we can achieve sustainable development. Thank you.